What was it that set Richard Nixon, the inveterate anti-communist and supporter of Taiwan and friend of Chiang Kai-shek over many years, down the long road to Peking?
Well, what brought us together, what brought the Chinese and the Americans together, was not a convergence of ideas, but a convergence of interests. I begin with that proposition. And then to determine how that came about, we have to understand that my history in that part of the world goes back a long way. I was first in the Far East in 1953, traveled to Japan, all the countries outside on the perimeter of China. And I saw then what the Chinese were doing in terms of exporting revolution to Indonesia, to the Philippines, to Thailand, to Vietnam, and so forth and so on. And then I also had an opportunity to continue to follow what was happening in Asia during that period, to talk to Asian leaders, to talk to people like Romulo of the Philippines, who was still living and still a foreign minister, a strong anti-communist, but one that felt that some dialogue between the United States and China should take place under the proper circumstances. And then in 1963, when I took a trip abroad, I saw independently de Gaulle and Adenauer, and each independently raised the question with me that the United States should probably reconsider its relationship with the People's Republic of China. Here are two strong anti-communists, had no illusions about the Chinese, but they felt that we should do so. In 1967, I took another trip to the Far East. And after that, I wrote an article for Foreign Affairs indicating that looking to the future after Vietnam, it was important to reevaluate the U.S.-Chinese relationship. I remember one of the first memorandums I sent to Henry Kissinger in 1969 after being inaugurated, it was a week after being inaugurated, was to initiate on a private basis a study of our relationship with Peking and with Taiwan and so forth. And so events began to follow events. Those who were surprised in 1971, in fact the announcement was made on July the 15th of 1971 that I would be going to China.
I have requested this television time tonight to announce a major development in our efforts to build a lasting peace in the world. The announcement I shall now read is being issued simultaneously in Peking and in the United States. Premier Chou En-lai, on behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, has extended an invitation to President Nixon to visit China at an appropriate date before May 1972. President Nixon has accepted the invitation with pleasure.
They simply hadn't been following. They hadn't read the article in Foreign Affairs in 1967. They hadn't paid any attention to the fact that we had relaxed travel restrictions. We had allowed trade where we hadn't allowed it previously. They didn't pay that much attention when the ping pong team came here, or ours went there, I should say. And and interestingly enough, their surprise, I think, is rather surprising, because when Henry Kissinger was in China, or on his way to China, in July of 1971, I made a speech in Kansas City. It was a rather long speech about our relationships in the world generally, and particularly with the People's Republic of China, and hinted very strongly there that we should make moves toward normalization and so forth. And yet, when we asked for the television time to make that 3-minute announcement with regard to the trip to China on July 15, 1971, none of the television commentators, with all their brilliant investigators, reporters, were able to make any predictions. One suggested it was probably about another withdrawal from Vietnam, and another suggested it might have been with regard to some problems we were having with Europe. The point was, I had tried to give them a message, but very carefully, of course, not breaking the secrecy pattern which we had. But now, having said all that, what brought us together was not, I emphasize, the fact that I had changed my view with regard to Chinese communism. I had not. What brought us together were our interests, and not because of agreement on ideas or any change in ideas.